Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Joseph Pith and this is the Pith Take. Lately I've noticed a bit of discussion around the apparent inevitability of a civil war in the UK. Much of that seems to be centred around some recent interviews given by Professor David Betz, I believe. I've linked to a couple of his recent interviews in the description to this video for anyone wanting to hear an actual informed and expert opinion on the matter. The purpose of my video, really, like a couple of others that I've made, is to share some thoughts from the point of view of someone who hasn't especially studied the issue but just finds themselves wondering about the prospect of something like this actually happening in their lifetime and what that might look like. When I hear the word civil war, I'm generally thinking like major civil unrest, violent clashes in the streets, general and widespread disorder, and some degree of societal collapse, really. I expect most people would have a similar take on it. If you flesh that out a tiny bit, I always sort of assume that in the UK at least, the warring factions are going to be the general population versus the state in some form or other. I think politics and the state have been the most common drivers of civil war historically, and on that basis you can kind of appreciate why there might be some discussion around the topic in the UK at the moment. People they're beyond frustrated, they're increasingly angry at now successive governments' flagrant lies, really, and hollowed out promises. They're pouring honey in the ears of the public while they're campaigning and then making like a swift and completely unapologetic U-turn the minute they're in office. Keir Starmer and his not a penny more on your council tax.
Yes, you heard it right. Not a penny more on your council tax. Not a penny more than the bill you paid last year.
Is a prime example of that. Well, I recently got my council tax bill, Keir, and there were over 10,000 more pennies on it. So, thanks for that. Even the one time in recent memory when the Westminster cartel shot themselves in the foot somewhat and were forced to enact some sort of pretense of implementing the will of the people following the Brexit referendum in 2016, even then they didn't deliver anything close to what was voted for. So there's this growing resentment over being ignored for decades, just a sense of being run over, and no matter who you vote for or who is in power, it's still this sort of big self-perpetuating uni-party circle jerk. Now obviously you'll hear people grumbling. It's pretty much a UK national pastime, but you do have to wonder what it will actually take for the country to stand up and just say, no, actually, we've just had enough of this shit. But, we're British, we're tolerant, we're mild-mannered, we're agreeable. Surely we'll just put up with it. We're probably like the poster child for sort of normalcy bias, we want to believe that this is just a blip, that life will get back to what it once was, while we're tolerating just being crapped on and expected to be thankful for it. But you wonder how far and for how long can you push people before they push back. And then you've got the summer of 2024, and our shiny new Labour government purposely withheld information from, and some might say purposely misled, the public regarding the suspect in the horrific and frankly just evil Southport knife attack. Now, the reason they gave for withholding information was so as to not prejudice the trial. But months later, still previous to any trial happening, they released the suppressed information and didn't sort of give any explanation as to why suddenly it wasn't prejudicial. It was that initial vacuum of information led to speculation online, and frustration boiled over in the form of protests, but soon after that, full-on riots, really. Now, the shining source of all truth and wisdom, that is Wikipedia, states that those were far-right anti-immigration riots. Now, it's a claim propped up by Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, because he pretty much branded the entire affair as far-right thuggery. But I don't really want to get too far into that. The point in raising it was just to highlight the fact that this simmering dissatisfaction and frustration and anger with the political class in this country can and does boil over, even for us meek Brits. Now, I believe Professor Betz talks about the realistic potential for some form of civil war in the UK within like the next 5 years. And you hear that and the bias immediately kicks in, because you're kind of thinking, nah, I just can't see that happening. But 5 years is a long time. And if this country continues on its current trajectory, economically and politically, when we're being told to believe that everything's on the up and up, but our actual lives tell a very different story, then how long will people put up with being gaslit like that? What's the 1984 quote? The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. Just thinks that, isn't it? Yeah. And the longer this goes on, it's going to be ever smaller straws that could break the camel's back. So, is civil war inevitable in the UK? Obviously, on a long enough timeline, of course it is. In the next 5 years? No, it's not inevitable. Is it possible though? Yes, absolutely. We've been slow marched towards this for almost 30 years now. Sadly, our lives will never get back to what they once were. And personally, I think far too much damage has been done to ever be undone by any change of the political guard. If you think like almost 400 years ago, 375 years ago, Parliament overthrew the first Charles and now today they preside as front for the unquestionable authority of permanent government, while you've got the third Charles, like his spaniel namesake, just being happy to play lapdog while the fabric of his country is methodically unpicked. And on that basis, if the inevitable does come sooner rather than later, it looks like it's we the people that are going to have to risk losing our heads. I'll see you in the next one.